We got hit right in the belly with an RPG, and it blew the helicopter up. It fireballed, and I woke up on the ground.
Jesus.
Basically, I got blown out, fell probably a little over 100 feet
That's
through the
wild.
trees. I was going down the steps into the bunker, and I heard somebody yell, "Freeze." So I stopped, and I looked around, and the whole bunker disappeared, just vaporized.
You know, somebody from the audience is hearing this, and they're saying you can get inside safes, and you can draw up sensitive, Soviet sites. What is protecting our Q codes right now?
Right, nothing. What people need to understand, remote viewing is not about learning anything new. It's about unlearning all the bad habits that we make about leaping to conclusions, making assumptions on very little information. In Vietnam, because of the heat, a helicopter can't just lift off and land unless it's in a higher elevation because the air is too warm. So at Pleiku City, you would take off like a plane. You start moving down the runway and lift off. The same with landing. So we were landing this one day, coming off a mission, and they said, they called our number and yelled, "Brake right, brake right." And we rolled over to the right, and this big bomber came in all shot up. So we had to wait till they cleared the runway. So we went out over the trees just outside the runway, and we're hovering there because it was cooler. So because it was cool, we had the front doors open, and I was sitting on the open side to the outside with my feet on the skid. I was just being cool in both ways. Cool sitting there and cool from the air. And we got hit right in the belly with an RPG, and it blew the helicopter up. It fireballed, and I woke up on the ground.
Jesus.
Basically, I got blown out, fell probably a little over 100 feet
That's
through the
wild.
trees, and
You're lucky
landed.
you survived.
I landed in the sitting position, just bang, with my legs out, sat. I could see my rifle in front of me. It was dusk, and the forward observer who saw that happen radioed back that he didn't think there were any survivors. He said nobody could have survived that because it fireballed. But since we had all the doors open, everybody was blown out of the helicopter. Nobody died, but people were really messed up.
That's a miracle that you survived.
Well, I tried to reach for my gun, and the pain made me pass out because I had compression fractures from my jaw to my butt.
Your spine must have been just completely messed up.
Oh, it was.
And your nerves as a result of that.
So I couldn't get to my gun, so I found a big rock, and I pulled my boot knife out and rolled under a bush and lay there all night. And you could hear people in the brush poking around. So I think it was VC or somebody looking for us.
VC, Viet Cong.
Yeah. So the next morning they found me and took me to the MASH unit and put me in traction. They put these screws in my skull and hung wire with springs with these heavy sandbags. And I was on this cot. And I was like that for maybe not quite 2 weeks. And when you're stretched out like that, you become very relaxed. It takes a lot of the pain away. But then they came in one morning, and the nurse said, we're gonna have to get you out of here because we have a lot of people coming in. We need the room. So they took me out of traction. And I'll tell you, the one thing you never want to experience is when your spine's been stretched for like 10 days or so, and then you swing your feet off the cot and stand up. Everything goes back into place. You don't want to know what that feels like.
Oh, God. Oh, man.
So I said, I'm still hurting. And they said, here. And they hand me a jar about the size of this cup full of Percocets. They said, walk it off. So I took the Percocets and went back to the unit.
Jesus, man.
And I walked it off.
And you eventually recovered, or did that
I didn't
persist
recover
through your life?
completely,
Yeah.
but I recovered to the point I could deal with it.
That's a true miracle. Do you think that experience that sort of trauma as a result of that actually enhanced or affected your psychic ability in any way?
No.
Okay.
What enhanced my ability, I would hear things, feel things, and I would just react to them without actually thinking about it. I'm looking for an example. I was at a place called Two Bits, which was a fire base, and we got hit really hard one night. And they said, your job while you're here is if we come under attack, you go to the CTOC, the Combat Tactical Operations Center, and go inside the bunker and run the radios, be in control of the radios. So when we were attacked, I took off, went to the bunker, and I was going down the steps into the bunker, and I heard somebody yell, freeze. So I stopped and I looked around, and the whole bunker disappeared, just vaporized. Some guy got in there with probably a backpack of plastique and blew it up. So everybody in the bunker was either killed or wounded.
Jesus.
And I woke up 40 feet away, face down in the mud, with a battle going on, and found a hole and crawled into it, and stayed in the hole, hoping nobody got in the hole with me for the rest of the night. And when dawn came, they broke contact and left. And so I got tagged I had flakes of metal in me. And I got tagged for going back to the MASH unit and having the metal taken out. But that's the kind of thing. You hear things, you will stop. Like when you're in the jungle, you just stop because something tells you not to go any further. And when that happens, I just go to ground. I just drop and hide.
Well, you seem more tapped into that layer than anybody, and thank you for your service, because I think you're known for your service in the psychic context more than the fact that you're a combat veteran.
Yeah.
But clearly, you've gone through a lot of pretty intense stuff.
I spent 13 years for sure overseas, and if you count temporary duty, probably a little longer than that.
At what point does the CIA become interested in psychic spying, and how do you get roped into all of this?
Well, in 1972, Russell Targ and Dr. Hal Puthoff, wrote an article that I think it was called Nature Magazine. Then they wrote a book called Mind Reach, and that got some notoriety. And so they met this guy. He was a police commissioner, and he was an older man. He's retired, and he made a claim that he could do psychic things. So they tested him, and he could. So they had him do what they called remote viewing back then. I don't think it was called that. It was called Project Scanate or something in the beginning. So they brought him in, and one of the targets he did, he actually blew the target, but he got something else when he did it. The target was an old cabin in the woods, and it belonged to a CIA man who was observing all this. He brought the target in because you got to be completely blind. So Hal Puthoff didn't know what the target was. Russell Targ didn't know, and neither did Pat Price. Only the CIA guy who brought it in, and he was not present during the viewing. So what Pat Price did is, instead of describing this old cabin in the woods, he described a clandestine site, which happened to be fairly close to the cabin, but over here. And when he described that, they were surprised, and they asked him to tell them about the inside. And he started talking about, this is a clandestine site. There's safes in here, five drawer safes. And they said, look in one of the safes and tell us what's in there. So he named the project names of like 3 or 4 safes. Not safes, files within the top drawer of the safe. It turns out all that was true.
Wow.
And when they found out, the CIA went, whoa, this is really fascinating. So they came and they tested him on a couple sites in Russia, areas in Russia which we knew existed, but could not get into. And he not only reported on them with accuracy, he talked about machinery and stuff there, like a big tower and these things they call gores, these giant slices out of a giant steel container, that sort of thing. And they were obviously testing controlled nuclear reactions inside these steel spheres to power lasers, stuff like that.
If I'm putting my skeptic hat on, somebody from the audience is hearing this and they're saying you can get inside safes and you can draw up sensitive, Soviet sites. What is protecting our Q codes right now?
Right. Nothing.
Really?
Really.
So basically anybody engaging in psychic spying or remote viewing can access the nuclear codes in any country.
Except that it's probably 1 in 2,000 people would have to be interested, trained for a lot of years to get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd have to have a natural capacity for it. And most don't. But that doesn't mean it can't be used for intelligence purposes. I can take someone, instruct them on how to do remote viewing, and give them a target that I don't even know what it is. It'll be in a sealed envelope, and they'll tell me stuff about it that's valuable.
You did this with me and a friend.
Yeah.
And my friend got it right, and it freaked us all out.
I did a program in Japan where I had a 4th grade class in the northern island, Hokkaido, and I had a 4th grade class down in Kyushu, and I was in Tokyo, and we put a row of fax machines in, and I had a sealed envelope, which nobody knew what was in it, under a red cloth on a podium. And what I did is I trained the 2 classes of kids in like 10 minutes on how to do a remote viewing. And then we had them do the remote viewing and draw the first thing that came in their mind. And they faxed it in, and we posted all those returns. So we had 70 pictures on the wall. 7 or 8 of them at the bottom were just lines, just straight lines, just a mass of straight lines. Everything above it, almost 70 pictures, were stars. Every way you could draw a star. 5-pointed star, Star of David, asterisk stars, 6-pointed star. I mean, every way you could possibly draw a star, these kids did that. And there were a multitude of different stars that were alike.
Wow.
And we pinned them all up on the board. And then after they all had faxed something in, we went to a commercial break. When we came back, I pulled the folder out, the yellow folder out from under the red cloth, cut the end off, and pulled the target out and showed it to the kids on the television. And we had cameras in both schoolrooms. What the target was a small aquarium with a starfish stuck in it.
Wow. Do you have this?
The kids went crazy.
And this is televised?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
31 million people.
Can we get the footage?
Well, maybe I do. I'm sending all that stuff to Rice University.
Very cool. The Archives of the Impossible.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
after 10 minutes of training.
Yeah. And 400 people in the audience pulled out their handkerchiefs. They were all so emotionally taken by that. They were tearing up. It's unbelievable.
Do you think kids have a kind of preternatural ability to do this?
No, they just don't know they can't.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
See, they haven't been
programmed.
Spoiled by their training all their lives.
Yeah.
Remote people. What people need to understand: remote viewing is not about learning anything new. It's about unlearning all the bad habits that we make about leaping to conclusions, making assumptions on very little information.